suggest for I have a 16-year-old boy that he's going through depression right now.
Yes.
I'm taking to psychology.
Yes.
And he suggested to take the medicines,
yes.
antidepressants.
Yes.
I'm not too sure about that.
Yes.
So what do you suggest about that?
You know, it's just really just, you know, it's so easy. I mean, there are so many methods. You talk to any therapist, all have different approaches. You know, for example, here, there's so many people would have so many approaches. It's really difficult because, you see, taking the Buddhist perspective, which is we've all got these unhappy states of mind. So I think before we even answer that question, I want to say a little bit more about how the Buddhist view understands attachment, understands anger and aversion, which are these fundamental, these core states of mind. And this, for the Buddhist approach, is just how everybody is. And again, like I said before, it's all a question of degree. So because it's these days, there's so much more we talk about. I mean, you know, in the 50s and 60s and 40s when I was a kid, no one talks about these things because it's really current right now. We have these very particular ways of talking about it, and then these very particular ways of dealing with it, you know. So I just think I can't give quick answers. What I can do is describe the Buddhist understanding of the mind in more detail. And then just see where this goes, okay? Yeah? You do that? Is that okay? Yeah. All right, good. Okay. So, like I mentioned during the week, and certainly let's go into more detail here. The way the Buddhist view describes the various states of mind is in a really clear way of dividing all the contents of our mind, of our mental consciousness, into three categories. This is absolutely not the way we think in the West. It's absolutely not the way we think. We might hear it and vaguely get some agreement, perhaps possibly. There's such different understanding. Okay. So, first of all, even it's already very interesting, even this. At this point. So we've got, first we have sensory consciousness, okay? And we have mental consciousness. And like I was saying, in all the Buddhist literature, when you study it in more depth, it goes to extraordinary subtlety and depth in the way they describe all these states of mind. It's very clear, very precise. So okay, first of all we have sensory consciousness. Then we have mental. So as Mother's own puts it, the mental consciousness, that's what the workshop is. And it's interesting, Buddhists point here, when they say the mind, they don't talk about here, they point here. And this point even I'm going to make now is already reiterating this point about the distinction between the sensory and the mental, and how whatever's in the mental consciousness is, like I said before, is a whole series of viewpoints. And so even when we use the word depression, I think if you ask each person or each therapist or each psychologist, you'd have 47 variations. You'd have very many differences of exactly what it is. Because I think it's a word that we use to cover so many emotional states, you know? So many. There can be so many intricate things going on in there. Talking from the Buddhist perspective of different states of mind. Not different, events or anything. So it's kind of really quite subtle. So okay. The first thing is, I might say to you, oh wow, look at that beautiful cut. So we know that that's involving the eye consciousness, isn't it? I look over there and then I say, what a beautiful cut, let's say. So naturally we assume my eyes see a beautiful cut. If I listen to some music and I hear even one note of that trumpet, I'll go, wow, Miles Davis, So yesterday I made a mistake. I thought it was Miles, but it was Alice Coltrane, so there you go, it's so clever. But if there's one note of a trumpet, I go, wow, that's Miles Davis, I'll bliss out, So synonymously, and we're not referring to the body, not referring to the eyeball or the eardrum. These are just the physical. You know, the eye consciousness is that part of your mind which is not physical, but functions through the medium of the eyeball, the nerves, etc., all working nicely to have a cognition. But the fact is, eye consciousness cognizes precisely two things. It's like the senses are like dumb animals. And this is very powerful because we give enormous power to our sensory experiences. Like as Amiyeshi puts it, we make the body the boss. We're completely junkies for our sensory experiences. That's the way we judge everything. It's the doorway between us and everything in the universe, is our senses. And we give enormous power to how they inform us. But the Buddha's view is they're incredibly deceptive. And it's not even accurate, because the eye consciousness can only cognize shape and colour. It doesn't have the capacity beyond that. So where does what a pretty cup come from? Well, this is how, because we're so programmed in this way, Buddha's telling us from many, many lives in the past, we come to this world completely programmed. From the first second conception, with the ways we interpret the world. So what's happening is, my eye consciousness cognizes that shape and colour, and I really think it's a great analogy, way quicker than Google. I mean quicker than Google. The mental consciousness is immediately accessed, and this is where all our memories are, and Buddha's talking about countless memories and countless lives, which are at the level of instinct for us. They're programmed with we're programmed with our tendencies, So quicker than Google, my mental consciousness is accessed, all my memories, what I like, the taste I've cultivated over my life, all of this instantaneously comes together within a millisecond. And out come the words, what a pretty cup. It's actually a viewpoint. So now my friend Carlos, when he was 6 years old, he sees a poster, he sees this half-naked woman. This is the shape and its colour, but instantaneously, his programming from attachment to female forms in the past, instantaneously is triggered at the age of 6, having never heard a word from his mummy. And up goes his I mean, there's way more talk about discuss with this process, but it's like programmed in him. And so he sees this divine shape. He calls it divine. He doesn't have words for it. Mummy, why is my penis standing up? He doesn't even know, but it's programmed deeply instinctive within him. So he has this opinion about it. It's an opinion. He can't even articulate it because he's programmed with this stuff. Okay, so what goes on in the mental consciousness is the stuff we have to learn to unpack and unravel. Because what is saying, as far as he's concerned, whatever goes on in there is the source of all our happiness and all our suffering. And basically, the first category of states of mind that he simply labels negative or deluded or delusional or neurotic or negative or non-virtuous, the whole series of synonyms that we use, disturbing. These states of mind, called, simply the words we refer to, like attachment, anger, jealousy, pride. We'll go into these, I'll describe more. They are the source of all suffering. They're in their nature neurotic, they're in their nature fear-based, they're in their nature actually utterly I-based, self-centered. They're delusional, they're neurotic, they're disturbing, they're liars, the source of all my suffering, the cause of why things appear in the world to be a certain way, and therefore I interpret things as good and bad, and why I therefore harm others. Then there's a second category called the virtues, these positive states of mind. In these days in psychology, we hardly even use words like love, compassion, and kindness. We use all these complicated concepts that we've come up with since Mr. Freud. For all these so-called mental illnesses must be volumes of what we call mental illnesses. But in a very simple way, Buddha would really like that phrase, mental illness. And he'd say that stuff that we think is so natural and normal, anger, depression, jealousy, pride, blah, blah, low self-esteem, fear, stuff that we think is utterly normal. It sounds kind of simplistic to us. The Buddha would, I think, he would have liked the phrase mental illness. He says they are our mental illnesses. And we all personally agree. First one. Second one, kindness, courage, contentment, confidence, compassion, generosity, the words that we take, so for granted. They are in their nature not I-based. They're not delusional. They're not disturbing. a murderer, or a meditator. Everybody needs these. They have neither the character of being positive or negative, but they're crucial states of mind. Having the capacity to remember things, good concentration, being very alert, a sharp mind that can distinguish between this and that. These are states of mind that have no kind of virtuous or non-virtuous or neurotic or delusional or virtuous character, but they're crucial. And we have these little working every millisecond. So a really good sniper, would have excellent alertness, excellent concentration, excellent good memory, very clear, sharp mind, But what would drive them to want to kill as opposed to help people, that's another one. That's in one of those other categories. Due to a habit from killing in the past, they see the job in the army called sniper, they're really good at shooting, and they fall into that job, to kill as many people as possible. It's called the enemy, for example. That's a tendency in the mind. A tendency. The wish to kill. For example, that would be called a negative state of mind. A negative tendency from habit, from having done it before. But if you've got not very good alertness, you've got lousy concentration, you'd be a lousy sniper, you wouldn't get the job. Oh, but I really want to kill people. Sorry, mate, you've got good enough concentration. You understand? You understand? So, these states of mind, there are those that are I-based, fear-based, neurotic, delusional, and the cause of all suffering we will ever experience, and any suffering, any sentient being in this universe ever experiences. It's across the board, the Buddhist view. And his own findings from his own experience, his amazing work coming back since eating booze, and his own discovery, his own mind, his own observations, this stuff can be got rid of. It's not at the core of our being. It is not who we really are. It does not define us. They're ancient habits. You can't say they're not. We're very familiar with them. We think they're second nature. And there's no model of the mind in our culture that would suggest anything remotely like this. It sounds mental illness. I mean, what's your name?
Hema.
Hema. If I go to Hema and I say to her, would you be so kind, Hema, to please give me a message to get rid of all ego, all fear, all jealousy, all depression, all anger, all low self-esteem, all arrogance, and develop infinite love and infinite compassion for all sentient beings all the time, I think she'd be quite worried about me.
No, I would say study Buddhist psychology.
Oh, there you go. She would know already the answer.
I would say study the Abhidharma.
There you go. So let's say she's never heard of that. I think they'd be quite worried to work out what kind of pill to give me to calm me down and sound a bit grandiose. But this is the point of Buddha's view. This is his view. And I think it's so fascinating. I keep on to stress this point. In the West we put psychology here. Then we put Buddhism over here. But if Buddha's dealing with the mind, which is what we're discussing here, then you have to put it in the category of psychology. It's just a very different view of the mind, that's all. But it's still psychology. Anyway, whatever, I'm not trying to offend you or anything, I'm just trying to say. So the point is this, let's look into these states of mind, especially one of depression, which is completely pervasive. Wow. Okay, so in these, let's just look at these so-called negative. There's like a hierarchy of them, okay? Well, the root, one of the key words, there's many characteristics of these unhappy states of mind in this particular group of states of mind, neurotic, delusional ones. There's two key characteristics that they have that are indicated by these two main terms that are used to refer to them. One is the term disturbing emotion. Well, check it out, I'm angry, depressed, jealous, fearful. There's no question it was deeply disturbing. That's clear. That we can recognize. But the other one's really fascinating. And that is they're called delusions. Now, if you were accused of being delusional, you'd be very offended actually. It's quite an intense thing to say to somebody. That means what, precisely? function. So this hierarchy, the root delusion they call it, which is something we don't really even have a term for, I think, in our psychological models. It's this primordial, deeply, primordially instinctive, so instinctive we don't have a name for it. Buddha would say mistaken, delusional, profoundly disturbing sense of I. And this is the key topic. This is where the Hindus came from. As His Holiness says, it was the Hindus more than 3,000 years ago who began this investigation. And that means investigating on the brain with their own cognitive process itself to profound depths. Buddha came from that tradition, and he literally went further. He would suggest a diversion of the Hindu view about exactly what the self is, and he came up with his own very clear, amazing findings about the nature of self. And all the stuff we're discussing here leads us to that more profound discussion about exactly, finally, what is it that is a self? Who am I? Finally. This is all the wisdom teachings in Buddhism, as they refer to the teachings about emptiness. We'll discuss it. Get to that. So this root delusion is this primordial mistaken sense of a neurotic I. And basically it's hugely fear-based. Its nature is fear. Its nature is fear. It's this profound sense, a mistaken sense, Buddha says, deeply mistaken sense of an I, an independent, separate, bereft, lonely I. And this is the deepest one. Now, on the basis of that, and effectively in daily life, the main voice of that neurosis is this craving, this attachment, this simple word they use in Buddhism. Frantically, desperately, every millisecond, to get what that supposed I wants. And this is the motive that drives all sentient beings, Buddha says, and again, it's a question of degree. So it's multifaceted, this attachment. Its first, most fundamental energy is the one of dissatisfaction. Very simple term, dissatisfaction. Seekers are people we know. Deeply dissatisfied, always miserable, never had enough. No matter what they get, never enough. No matter what they do, never enough. No matter what they achieve, never enough. No matter who loves them, never enough. Like bottomless pit of misery. Do we know something like this? It could be us. But this is the fundamental function of this primordial mental illness called attachment. Don't use your definitions of this word. This is a particular one what is referring to. It's deep dissatisfaction, which naturally gives rise to this constant sense with this. If you're dissatisfied, it means there's something missing. And this is primordial. It's not that conscious, A feeling of something missing, never enough. So then naturally gives rise to this strong craving for something. And the first level of this craving is the objects of the senses. It's pretty clear. The craving for something out there, such that when I get it, it will alleviate the dissatisfaction. It will fill up the gaping hole. This is the grossest level of this attachment. Then it's got this function, this attachment. It's got the one of craving and then manipulating it to looking at something, searching for it. And then you find an object, a person, food, sound, smell, taste, the grossest objects, the objects of the senses, a shape, whatever, a handbag, a piece of clothing, whatever, simple object of the senses. First level, immediate, constant, since we're born. So that craving then will search for the object, and what it will do, and this is the real killer, what it will do, that attachment then has the function, when the eyes see that brown triangle on the plate, instantaneously the mental consciousness is triggered, the memory is triggered, and we label it chocolate cake, the memory of having had it before is triggered, the memory of having found it very delicious in the past is all triggered, it's all stored away, and in a millisecond, what happens, this attachment, what it does, is the more dissatisfaction, the more the craving, the more the manipulating, the more divine that object will look to your mind, meaning your mental consciousness. You And this is natural in this. Every being has this one. It's natural, utterly primordial, and we think it's, in our culture, it's completely normal. So then that's the one that causes you to put the hand out and put it in the mouth. So the next one is this huge excitement. So first of all, there's this bereft feeling. Oh, what's missing? You know, there's this happiness, something's missing. Then you think cake, and the mind goes, oh, so excited. Then you start the anticipation. The anticipation. You walk to the cupboard, you open it up, you go to the cafe, and you all, all this anticipation, this energy of anticipation is very delicious. Because you have something to look forward to, and that's the function of attachment too. Attachment is always looking forward to something, always looking forward. So suddenly you're anticipating the cake, and then you see the cake, and your stomach's empty, all the conditions are perfect, and it will look divine to your mind, not to your eyes, your mind. Your attachment is calling it divine. And so because you're addicted to it, your mind will believe it's divine, it will look divine. Your mind is shaking with excitement to get that piece of cake in the mouth, not here. You don't forget what hole it belongs to. This is the mouth that goes, this is the hole it goes into, we know that. Then you try, you're not acting like a 3-year-old and kicking and screaming, I want my cake, mummy, you be patient, you wait till they offer it to you on the table, you be polite. But you can't wait to get it in the mouth, right? And all this is happening subliminally, this anticipation, excitement. Do you understand, people?
Yes.
Normal world. So the anticipation is the energy that's delicious. And then you get the mouth, and then there's all this expecting, then there's the expectation. There's the controlling, there's the dissatisfaction, the craving, the controlling or manipulating, you get it. The exaggerating of its deliciousness, and now the anticipating to get the pleasure, that you just find what's got to get in the mouth to bring the satisfaction. So we all know that. It comes into the mouth, and it's delicious. What does it do? It triggers a really nice feeling. This is what we've been waiting for. The happy feeling. That's what a happy feeling. Right? We know that. Delicious. But even as you're chewing it, you can't wait for the next mouthful. Isn't it? So exciting, so delicious. And you keep anticipating. What are we waiting for? We're waiting for satisfaction to come. So we all know what happens, please, maybe a second, please. Maybe, it's strong attachment. It's so delicious, it's so delicious. And then you finish, we might have another thing, so have another piece or something. And then we all know how we end up. Suddenly, the anticipation is gone down. You've eaten the cake, and suddenly there's this jaded feeling. Your stomach's full. In fact, your stomach's stuffed. But there's no satisfaction. There's no satisfaction. There's distress. This could be subtle, it could be extreme. There's distress. Your stomach's full, you kept eating, anticipating happiness to come, but it didn't. Actually you missed it. Already the first mouthful, probably the best. After that, you should relax and get blissful, but we don't. Already we're not satisfied, we keep wanting the second one, the third one, until eventually we're stuffed. You feel guilty, and mentally you're noting on you look at the cake and now, and this is the key point, you look at the cake now, how does it, the state's full cake on the plate, how does it look now? Disgusting. Isn't it true? So this is a really simple way of describing what we are doing 1,000,000 times a day to the most intense one of, being falling in love with somebody and finally I found happiness and we're going to be, blissing out completely with all the other 1,000,000 stories in the mind. But you're going to be like, all this business of the person, the anticipation, the unbelievable bliss of the anticipation. This is the function of attachment. So when we hear that Buddha says this is a mental illness and it's the cause of suffering, you want to kill yourself. Because we think, well, excuse me, mate, this is life. So really Buddha's point is really quite profound and quite subtle, quite nuanced. And it really does take time to even hear this in some kind of way that we can recognize. We do recognize it, but then we think, well, what other method do we have to get happiness? This is our method. This is how we live our lives. So then we think, as Omazola says, when we think the Buddha says you've got to give it up, we go, oh, I've got to give up my happiness. I've got to give up my heart. Because right now, we literally cannot distinguish between being attached to chocolate cake and enjoying This is normal. This is normal. So basically, attachment to the Buddha is like being a junkie. And I use these words really meaningfully, really accurately. I'm not trying to be smart, you know. We're all junkies, Buddha says. It's just a question of degree. We're all junkies, we're all addicts. It's just a question of degree. And I'm really, really not joking. And the more we understand Buddhist psychology by first studying it and then looking at your own mind, we can really, what addiction is attachment. It's just a question of degree. But of course in our culture, normal attachment, like the way I just described, is normal. You're not considered mentally ill. It's only when it's extreme and you eat and you're 500 pounds, overweight. Or sex is normal, but if you like this one guy we were reading about who's addicted to sex, he talked about it. It's actually the same thing as the chocolate cake. As he's having sex with one girl, he's already thinking of the next one. That's what attachment does. Because the addiction to being dissatisfied, you can have a million girls, you'd end up not just dissatisfied, but vomiting, The same with food. I remember watching one of those programs, about obese people, those things, and this little girl, she's 20, this little girl, she was 500 pounds, And you could see looking into her eyes, she was this vampire, this little junkie in there. It was just beyond suffering, the tragedy of her simple attachment, which for her was for food. And her mother said, it was so moving. The mother said, she's always been like this. She never felt full. So that sounds so cute, doesn't it? Never felt full. What do you think full means?
Not enough.
Full means dissatisfied. Full means I'm empty, I'm nothing, I'm nobody, I'm nothing. No matter what I eat, I'm still not satisfied. These words sound so simple. Never satisfied. We know some people who are miserable all their lives. The richest, I was thinking Marilyn Monroe. She for me is a perfect example of this. The suffering of that. She was a complete craving junkie. But what for her? And this is a deeper level of attachment as to what other people think it is. Attention, crave. This is a profound one. Forget the senses. For people approving of us. This is a primordial attachment. And you can see someone like her. The whole world absolutely worshipped her. I watch her movies, I'm keep my eyes on her, she's so gorgeous, I adore the look of Marilyn Monroe, the way she talks, the way she walks, I can't keep my eyes on her. She's gorgeous. Millions of people felt that. This sweet nature. But this utter self-obsessed, utterly self-centered, obsession, inability. In other words, having attachment means you think you're nothing. It's a symptom of a deeply suffering person who thinks they're nothing. I'm never enough. It's kind of cliche, it's so profound. This is attachment. So now, get to repression. The point is this, the minutes of this attachment building up, and it's the energy, dissatisfaction, you get the thing, you crave, you exaggerate, you manipulate, you control to get it, you anticipate, you build it up, it makes it all more delicious, you get it, you're waiting for happiness, and then what's left is a stuffed stomach and wanting to vomit, and the object looks repulsive. Variations of this pattern. What is this? This is samsara. So, at some point, isn't it, we're anticipating satisfaction, but at some point we seem to have missed it, and suddenly dissatisfaction comes now of a different kind, of being too full. Before it was being empty. All the build-up, all the waiting, all the anticipating, and now it's going downhill. And you keep eating, hoping the next piece will do it. You just hope and pray, even though you're feeling jaded already, you just hope maybe the next mouthful might just do it. But you have to stop eating. Or like the poor girl, you couldn't. And then she died. Anyway, she died. She couldn't cope with all that waiting on her body. So this is the point now. In general, the opposite of attachment is aversion. The state of mind called aversion. It's a very simple word. So you've got attachment which over-exaggerates the deliciousness of something, and you go towards it. Then aversion is the exact opposite, and that over-exaggerates the ugliness of something, and you want to go away from it. Okay? Well, a strong version of that is easy. We call that anger. So when I get full from my cake, I don't get angry with the cake. But there's aversion in my mind. The object was revolting now, isn't it? So basically, aversion is a response when attachment doesn't get what it wants, or gets what it doesn't want, or is thwarted. And it has a mass multitude of ways of manifesting. And this is happening like 1 million times a day. So that at a subtle level, attachment is driving us all the time. So it's the energy, when we wake up in the morning, it's this energy that starts to take over. Well, you know, and one of its big jobs is anticipating, looking forward to something. You've got all your jobs to do. We've got to get up, we've got to get dressed, we've got to shower, and do this. Always, we're propelling ourselves forward, aren't we? Getting up in the car, we're going to work, we're going to do this, and do that. All the time, we're propelling forward. All the plans in the mind, which is the energy of attachment. Getting our jobs done, that's mixed with other things too. But this is propelling us. And then we all know, the more we're focused, and sometimes it's great anxiety. Anxiety is a function of attachment. Because you have your plans, and you've got to get it, make it happen. And all these obstacles come, don't they? Like the traffic is bad, the red lights come, the tyre's flat, something goes wrong, and then your plans are stopped in their tracks. Well, obviously the response is the more you're craving to make this happen, and we just call it normal life, the more upset we will get when something goes wrong. Well, that upset, irritated, annoyed, frustrated are all polite words for aversion. You wouldn't call those anger. But they're aversion, which is the opposite of attachment. So attachment is excited energy, anticipating, looking forward, neediness. And then aversion is like you're stopping your tracks. Even when we drop something, you curse at yourself, don't you? That's aversion, that's anger. Something goes wrong, the red lights, you curse, you shout, that's anger. The thing doesn't come the way you want, you get frustrated. Frustration, annoyance, irritation, all these words, 1 million times a day. When the second your attachment doesn't get what it wants, the second you're on a roll and you're stopped in your tracks from doing what you want, attachment. So when it's strong aversion, in my case, in my life, my nature it was volatile. It was called anger. Now, some of you, instead, it goes in, and that's what depression is. And depression is a build-up. Basically, it's a state of aversion in the mind, which is what? Nothing to look forward to. Nothing is interesting. Everything looks grey and ugly. There is no worth in anything. Mostly you can't even articulate it because it's been building up slowly. Tiny, all this anticipated. Every day our mind's anticipating this, wanting that, needing this, wishing this, hoping this, and then it gets thwarted, and then a disappointing thing happens, and then it builds up and builds up and builds up until eventually you can't stand it, you can't get out of bed one morning. Are we communicating here or not?
Yes.
Does that make sense what I'm saying? So in other words, it's really subtle. You don't just suddenly, with me you could see I was angry immediately. The second I didn't get what I wanted, you could tell it immediately. Instantaneous rage, Depression is internalized aversion. Internalized. I give it, it's like a friend of mine. Attachment's multifaceted. It's the default mode for all of us. It's this constant wanting things to be a certain way, but a neurotic wanting. Wanting to do things in a certain way is not in its nature negative, but attachment is a neurotic wanting, a needy wanting, an I-centric, obsessed wanting. But we can't see the difference between that and ordinary wanting, between that and virtuous wanting. We just can't tell the difference, Like, I use the example of someone, let's say, Hema. And I use a simple example. We like chocolate cake. We go to the cafe. We just look like we like chocolate cake. We order chocolate cake. And then carrot cake comes. Well, Hema might go, oh, that's cool, I can handle it, and she proceeds to enjoy it. I might go, excuse me, I ordered chocolate cake and get upset and won't pay the bill. Well, we both, before we got the cake, we just looked like we liked chocolate cake, didn't we? No one would say we got a problem. Oh, isn't that nice? They like chocolate cake. But when the thing that, in my case, the proof that I had this neurotic craving for chocolate cake, or even more simply, the craving to get what I wanted, was when I didn't get it and I got upset. Where she maybe was able to work on her mind, recognise it's not what she wanted, but she can change. She changed her mind basically, and then she proceeded to enjoy it. That's the proof of the presence of attachment in my mind. Well, you can't see it until you don't get what you want. Are we communicating with that one? In other words, the most primordial level of attachment is getting, the deepest one, forget the objects, is getting what I want, whatever that might be. It's a neurotic craving, and the more deep it is, the more frantic and hysterical and outraged and panic attack we will experience the millisecond we don't get what we want. I mean, when you think of a child, stamping and screaming and kicking and shouting and yelling the second their attachment didn't get what it wanted. We're still like that, except we don't behave so badly sometimes. We're kind of grown up a bit, you know, hopefully. We don't stop and burst into tears. But we experience it in here. And then, of course, because you see, these delusions, what's so fascinating in the Buddhist view, all these delusions, which we think are normal, he says they're completely driven by fear. This is like hysterical fear. In their nature, they're fear. In their nature, they're anxiety and panic and fear. In their nature, and that's why when Lama Zopa says, when you finally quit this rubbish and you realise emptiness, you realise the absence of that fantasy I, which we'll talk about, he says literally, there is no fear. You've gone beyond fear. You become fearless. This is insane in our world. We don't think such a thing exists. This is Buddha's view. I mean, it's an outrageous idea. To be fearless, to have confidence, to have clarity, be completely programmed with confidence, clarity, fearlessness, generosity, love, compassion, not to mention even more amazing levels of that stuff. This is the Buddha's deal. He's dealing with the mind. Don't think of it as holy. And of course it's the hardest job we'll ever do, but this is the job to be done. Then whether you're a mother of 10 children or a multi-millionaire, you'll do a good job. Because you'll have wisdom, you'll be beyond ego, you'll have clarity, you'll have wisdom, you'll have joy, you'll enjoy everything you do, and even if you lose all your money, you'll still be happy. This is what Buddha says we're capable of. So aversion is the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants, and that's like 1,000 times a day. Subtle little moment events of it. We only notice them when they're really serious, you know, or they build up. Things build up. They build up. Like, you know, when you're in a relationship and you're suppressing all your anger, you're just this victim, and then one day you finally shoot the person, kill them, stab them, you know, because it built up. And that means not dealing with it as it's arising. So depression is just more subtle. And I think it's a word that's used for many things going on in there, you know. It's not that easy to answer, depression. And of course it isn't impacted by our body. It is impacted by the physical body. You know, so the Tibetan doctors, you go to the Tibetan doctor, she'll feel your pulses and she'll feel your subtler wind energies. And the model that they use is that all our states of mind are utterly connected with the wind energies. It's a very different model. They say the minds ride on the winds. Very, very different model. So she'll feel your pulses and she'll feel an imbalance in certain wind energies. And she'll see, which is what we call anxiety. You almost have panic attacks and anxiety. That's attachment energy gone berserk in a very subtle kind of way. So they've got certain herbal medicine that you take that calms the wind energies down so that your depression calms down, or your anxiety calms down. It's just the same as you take your, you know, whatever it is, your serotonin or whatever, and that calms certain components down in your body so that your depression is less severe. Because depression is not physical, it's mental, it's aversion, it's the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants. It's a build-up. So that then eventually, like with attachment, when attachment sees a delicious object, it looks ravishing, divine, shiny and bright. We know that. And then when aversion's in the mind, the object looks ugly. When you're angry with somebody, they look revolting. When you have depression, it's the same. The objects look grey and nothingness and boring. Nothing's delicious. And the real energy of depression, which is the opposite of attachment, is there's nothing to look forward to. One of the energies of attachment is always this anticipating, always looking forward to something. Well, now I'll this, and now I'll have that, and now I'll go there, then I'll go here, then I'll have that, then I'll do this, then I'll go on vacation, then I'll come home, then I'll retire, then I'll do this, and I'll buy a boat. You understand the whole life planned out. All this kind of buoyant looking forward to something. It keeps us kind of focused. It's our main motor. But when you've got this so-called depression, you've got nothing to look forward to. There's nothing that excites you anymore. So attachment is deflated. Are we communicating here?
Yes.
I'm not saying fixing is easy. None of this is easy. But this is just I'm doing the analysis, the Buddhist analysis of the mind, you know. And it seems, I mean, that's for me the analysis that I use to try to understand my mind and other people's minds, you know, to help them. Which doesn't preclude taking a drug. In my family, like I said, we're all diagnosed in the 60s as bipolar or manic depressive. Every one of my my sisters, they're marvellous people, my brother too, fantastic human beings, I love them, who have real access to their virtues and have really worked in their lives on their minds, and have therapists, whatever, and they're good human beings. And one of them, I think, she still takes her Prozac. You know? So the rest of us, good human beings, joyful, optimistic, positive, realistic, dealing with the world, wonderful human beings. And that's our saving, these are our saving grace. If this is the way, the Buddhist way of saying it, we've all got these delusions. We've all got them. But if it's the access to our positive states of mind, which is our confidence and clarity and intelligence and wish to change and confidence to never give up and perseverance and love and morality and ethics and goodness, this is our saving grace. That's the stuff that we can use to counteract the other garbage. You can be a maniac in the negative stuff, but if you've got the good stuff, you will be okay, because that's the stuff that is who we really are. And that's what I'm saying before, like if a person can't access that stuff, if they're mainly driven by the negativity and their victim and their anger and their fears and their dramas, and they don't even know they've got a state of mind and it plays a role, and they don't even know that they can change their mind, how unfortunate, but how amazing and fortunate. But you know you can do that. That's what makes us human beings. That's what defines us as human. And that's our saving grace. This is the stuff we have to cultivate. What are you communicating here?
Yes.
So one of the approaches to this for ourselves is seeing all this, hearing, this is all the theories, okay, but I'm expressing my words on my take on it based on the study I've done, but based on my own, whatever internal work I've done. I'm not saying I've done that much. You understand my point? I'm trying to express. But the key thing for me is to have confidence that you can do it. I know when I first heard the Buddhist teachings, and I really not joke when I say it was the first time in my life that I'd heard to look in my own mind. When my mother made me go to that therapist, I just told her, F off, because I wasn't interested in this boring old medicine. I wasn't ready for healing methods, But then I did my other business, and then I bumped into these Tibetans, and then I began this whole business of looking at my mind. And of course that's, however many years it is. But so for me, it was first having confidence that I could do this, that the Buddha's saying it's possible for everybody. So I was inspired by that. And then, but it took me years of hard work and really difficult work to really first have a real internal confidence that, for example, anger, one of my bad qualities, for example, that anger wasn't my middle name. It really is true to say, when I first started being a Buddhist, and I had a relationship with my teacher, Lama Yeshe, and he was like my boss, that actually he put me in certain situations, and I trusted him, that actually increased my anger to degrees of I thought I was going insane. I was like a maniac at the beginning. I was like a maniac. But because I trusted Lama Yeshe, his wisdom, my therapist, if you like, he's my therapist, if you like, and he was my boss as well, so he put me in certain jobs to do, so I worked for him as well as being my teacher, that completely caused my anger to explode. I thought I was going nuts. But even then I knew it was my practice. It was what I had to do. But it was like intensely difficult. So there's no question for me that when I started to work on my mind, it felt like my anger was gone nuts, like gone crazy, Unbelievable. But I persevered because I knew it was mine. But it took me many years before I had some confidence that this wasn't my middle name, that it wasn't at the core of my being. Even theoretically I accepted, but experientially because the habit was so deep. This is one habit, So really what I'm getting at is it's a really intense process. It takes time. Anybody who's done any therapy knows it takes time. Looking into your own mind, taking responsibility is huge and so courageous. So you should be so happy that you want to do that. But be ready for the hard work. A friend of mine who's a therapist and a Buddhist, she says doing this work is having your hands in your own shit. And it's not joking, it's deadly serious. Because being a Buddhist doesn't mean sitting there, making it all go away and sort of watching your breath and being all peaceful and loving the universe. I mean, forget it. It's intense. Because you're trying to own what's going on inside you and really investigating deeply and owning it. So for me, having theoretical confidence in the process, in the methods you're using, you have to have that, otherwise you'll give up, you know. And that's what sustained me. So I had confidence, you know, that it's possible. So that means the process, part of the process, is learning to be glad to discover your shitty mind, you know. And that's not easy, because we have this addiction to finding fault, in particular with ourselves. So we know we're miserable, and we come into Buddhism, oh gosh, they've got methods to get rid of attachment, get rid of anger, wow, great, far out. Then you discover you've got bucket loads of it, oh, I'm so bad, I'm so angry, I'm so jealous. And then automatically the commentary starts. You see yourself being angry, oh, I shouldn't be angry, blah, 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 you know. So bad enough, my feeling is bad enough being angry, but why be angry with it as well? And that's what we do. So the big shift has to happen when we start to be glad that we're seeing our mind. Be glad you've got your hands in you know what. Because if you don't see it, how can you change it? And that really takes, that's the one that really when we begin to grow up. Instead of, oh, I'm so much attached, oh, I've got so much anger, I'm such a bad person, blah, 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 you know, we love to do that. But the irony of ego in Buddhism is that we're addicted to misery. We're addicted to negativity, our negativity. So especially when we're trying to become more conscious of it, we seem to increase almost our negativity. I'm such a bad person. Oh, I've got so much anger, so much attachment. So we've got to be able to see it and see it for what it is. And as we keep doing this job, we see it ever more deeply. But we have to be glad that we're seeing it, happy that we're seeing it, happy that we're seeing it. And that's a very different attitude. And that's what gives us great courage. And that's what makes us sane and civilized. You know? And then eventually, when you're really working with your own stuff, you can be having a terrible time. But no one has to know. Whereas right now, we wear our hearts on our sleeves. Everyone can tell we're having misery because we can't contain it. But as we develop more in this process, you can be really having a terrible time, but you're not showing it. Not because you're hiding it, because it's nobody's business but yours. And because you're working with it and you have confidence in that job of being your own therapist. Of course, have friends to talk to. We need good friends. There's no doubt about it. But in the end, we are the one who does the internalizing, does the processing, and does the changing. And my point here in relation to the question, if I can't understand my mind in this way, how can I help somebody else? So now that gets to another tack now. Let's say it is your child, and because we adore our child, and indeed using Buddhist here, we've got so much attachment to our child. And remember, one of the functions of attachment is it can't stand the bad things. It can't bear the problems. That's why we have panic attacks. Because attachment is a junkie that can only bear the nice things. That's why, without being rude to my friend who was the therapist, and my panic attack friend rang me up, because the therapist panicked and wanted to send her to the ER, you know? Because he didn't know what to do to help her. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's, because attachment can't stand to see the ugly things. So it really needs courage to be able to see the world as the nightmare that it is, to see your own shit, to see other people's, but not have a panic attack about it, to have some more confidence about it, that you know what's going on and that you're like a rock and can be there to help that person, and to know that maybe you can't make it go away, you can't make it better maybe. It's because attachment is what causes, you see, attachment is the cause of our own misery. And then when we see other people's misery, because our attachment can't stand it, so then we freak out, The attachment makes it even look worse. So as we lessen our own attachment, we grow our own courage, our own clarity. And then we can see our beloved child suffering. But because we understand it a little bit, and we know that just being there like a rock, like I was from my friend, I learned that from my friend who was having a panic attack. I couldn't take her pain away. There's no point in me panicking as well as her panicking. We'll both drown together. How stupid. But I could see just to be like a rock for her. To be there so that she could anchor. I was her anchor. Just to be there, not to be magic, not to make it all go away. Let her have her craziness, let her have a panic attack. I couldn't stop it, but be there like a rock holding her while she's having it. Not panicking about her panic attack. Because it passes. So To even begin to help another with their mind, you've got to have worked on your own mind first. You've got to have lessened your own neuroses, your own fears, and your own attachment, because then you can see your friend more clearly, not through the filter of your own neuroses, which makes their problem look worse than it is. And then attachment frantically wants to make it all go away. Because again, attachment can't stand the bad things. Now this is where it's really tricky. Let's say that a person like me, when I get angry, it was easy to see, Rabina's attachment's not getting what it wanted. There she goes again. Okay, a kid who gets shouts and yells and screams. There it is, you can see it. Their aversion, because their panic attack is attachment didn't get what he wanted. But the other child who doesn't have a panic attack, you understand, who's more quiet, that's where it's more difficult to see. But let's say yourself, you're like that. Let's say you're a really kind person. You're patient, you don't get angry, you're very kind, and that's an amazing quality. I think patient people are like special, like a category of saints, you know. Really, I mean this sincerely. I mean, like we look at all the suffering of the world, all the crazies. You can basically say it's because of anger. It sounds so cute to us, too simple almost. But it's when attachment doesn't get what it wants, that's when we harm each other. Kill, lie, steal, you name it. So here you are, a patient person, which means you don't have much anger. It's incredible quality. You're a really kind person as well. Look, you're virtuous, you've got lots of good qualities. And then you've got a child who's suffering, let's say. But you, like the rest of us, have masses of attachment. And your attachment, like everybody else's, wants what it wants only the nice things. So when you see your child, when you see a child suffering, if an angry mother sees her child do the wrong thing, she'll scream and shout at him. A patient mother will see her suffering child. Well, no, a patient mother might see her child do the wrong thing, won't get angry, and because she's patient, sometimes she'll actually put up with it, which is really wrong. She should act and do something to help the child be controlled. An angry mother will leap in, but a patient mother might end up being passive. So in other words, the bad side of anger is that you stick your nose in too much and you shout and yell and harm people. The bad side of patience in that respect is that you're passive and you will put up with things that you shouldn't put up with. But it looks like it's being patient. That's one point. But the other one is this. Let's say you've got an alcoholic brother. Again, whatever it is, kid, brother, whoever. And so on the one side you've got compassion. That's a virtue. Fantastic. You want them to be happy. That's called love. You don't want them to suffer. That's called compassion. You have that. Bucket loads of it. You worry about it. That's called compassion. But you don't realize that it's polluted by your attachment. The junkie in you, which you can't see because that compassion looks like the one that you're expressing, but actually it's really polluted by your neediness to have everything lovely. And so your attachment can't stand seeing your alcoholic brother. So your attachment pollutes your compassion. You stick your nose in where it doesn't belong. You worry about him all the time. You talk about him all the time. And because of your attachment, all you're seeing is an alcoholic brother, meaning your aversion, all it does is define the alcoholic brother. So the alcoholic brother is looming large, whereas you forget all the other qualities that he's got. And it's the same with your depressed kid, maybe, or your angry kid, or your crazy kid. Because your attachment can't stand it. It looks worse to you. You forget all the good qualities. You don't have a balanced picture of the person. You can't be steady and courageous about it. So your attachment causes you to butt in and try and help your brother, give him advice, tell him, and you manipulate him. Do this, that's your compassion, that's your attachment. But you just think it's called your compassion. But it's your attachment. And then when he doesn't do what you want and he gets drunk again, then you give up on him. Because you're annoyed because he didn't do what your attachment wanted. So if you've got compassion without attachment, you're more wise, you're strong, you're fearless, you see his suffering, you realize there's nothing much you can do, you love him for who he is. But you stay sane and steady. So getting rid of our attachment is what makes us staying clear, steady, and can see the other person more clearly and can be more realistic in knowing how to help them. Are we communicating here?
Yes.
And this stuff goes to incredibly subtle levels. Hard to see. You uncover one level, you see another. You keep going deeper, ever deeper, ever deeper, ever deeper. Like layers of an onion, subtler and subtler levels of attachment. Yes.
You speak a lot about anger and your journey with
microphone, please. I can't hear so well.
Hello, can you hear me?
A bit better now.
Yes.
I think I better see you as well. It helps. Okay, go on.
I want to see you. Hello. No, I'm curious about your journey with anger.
I just use that as an example.
Right. But is it something that, if you don't mind sharing your experience? Like, for example, I'm very patient until I'm not, and then I'm angry. And then there's, I know there's no guilt in Buddhism, but there's that process that you go in your mind, that you beat yourself up.
That's right.
And then you go into acknowledging it. I'm in this process of starting. What is the psychology? How do people? Do you have any advice on talking to myself as I'm acknowledging and not feeling embarrassed that I burst at someone? Or
Okay, there's two parts of all these things. Whether it's called anger or arrogance or low self-esteem or jealousy or whatever it is that we're trying to observe, which is what's making us so miserable. And then we begin to note, especially we notice it when we had a fight with somebody because you feel so ashamed and we're feeling embarrassed because we've been seen to be angry. That's the part I think that's a major one. If you look in our minds, because one of our attachments, very strongly, the deeper attachment, a much more subtle attachment, as I mentioned briefly, is a desperate craving to be seen as a nice person. So when you're angry, you've exposed yourself terribly. That's part of the main suffering there. But when you're frantic mostly, especially with a friend, you're desperate to try and get them to forgive you because you're terrified they're going to reject you. There's a major one of being exposed. That's too painful to be seen to be bad. Do you understand? If you're angry on your own, you don't mind so much because no one saw you.
Exactly.
But that's a major part. That's attachment to be seen as a nice person, which is the torment inside. We beat ourselves up and tortured inside, Do you understand? There's a part of that. But in general, the whole attitude to cultivate is join the club. It's called samsara, and we're all in it. We've all got this stuff. It's normal. So that's first helpful. You kind of get a steady ground to work from. And then the wish is to investigate your mind. And the Buddha's view, the only reason is because this stuff is not at the core of our being, and finally, long term, can be removed. Well, that's really advanced. But forget that. Even the confidence that this is not at the core of my being, and this is the stuff that breaks my heart. So obviously you want to recognize it. So it's this adult, kind of grown up, wanting to see your delusions. So the really brave one to do when you've exposed yourself or been mean to somebody else, the first one is to try and not just worry what they're thinking and desperately try to get them to forgive you to get off the hook, which is what we want, to try and sit with it and see the pain it's causing you. Hear all the roommates all saying, the attachment is saying this and all the bits and pieces. But sort of the good part of you, a wise part of you, okay, here we go again. I've seen it again. But then in a confident way, it's painful, you made a mistake yet again, you've fallen down yet again, you've exposed yourself yet again. So you see that, feel the pain, but the training yourself to think, okay, it's okay, it isn't who I really am, it is an old habit, you're kind of forgiving yourself because the habit's very deep, but I can lessen it, and you make a confident decision, I'll do my best to watch my mouth next time. You try to be nice, it's sort of like a good friend talking to you, telling you it's okay, darling, it's not really your true nature, and it's really okay, and you've got to have that part of your voice. Don't just wait for someone else to tell you it's okay. We've got to be our own therapists in that sense, and that gives us courage to pick ourselves up, and then you can have the courage to sincerely apologise for your bad mouthing, you're really sincere, not grovelling, but just apologise, and it's up to the person to forgive you or not. And if they don't, that's when it's very painful, then you have to really live with it, You have to learn to live, but you learn from it. The key one is to learn from it, not to beat ourselves up, which takes time. It's a learning. If you're playing the piano and you play the wrong note yet again, if you keep abusing yourself for playing the wrong note, forget about continuing to get better. You won't. It's a learning. Oh, thank God I've noticed I played the wrong note. Now I can fix it. That's the positive attitude. It's okay. It's not at the core of my being. And this is how we deal with all the dramas. It's very hard. We have to cultivate those positive ways of talking. Do you understand? Ego wants to get us off the hook, and we desperately want someone else to get us off the hook. So you rush to your friend and you tell them how you got mad at this boyfriend, and they say, yeah, you're absolutely right, really, you should have been angry. And we kind of feel a bit better because someone's approved of us, We've got to be brave and own it. But the thing is, don't exaggerate. Guilt is internalized anger as well. I am bad. Well, what do you think anger is? You're bad. It's the same as you. So guilt is just anger, again, against yourself. And one of the key functions of all these neuroses is they exaggerate. That's a key. When we can see this, it's very enlightening. Attachment exaggerates the deliciousness. Aversion or guilt or depression or anger exaggerate the ugliness. So then the whole of you appears terrible. We don't exaggerate it. It's just your anger that's the drama. The rest of you, you've got your positive qualities. We've got to train ourselves to talk to ourselves like that. This is huge. This is what practice is. This is what practice is. Do you understand? Okay. Someone else. What happened?
It's on.
Okay. Anyone else? Questions, please? No? Any questions?
Over here.
Yes, sweetheart. Yes, madam.
Thank you. Can you please describe the subtlest level of attachment
I didn't
called?
hear the first bit.
If you can please describe the subtlest level of attachment called attachment to praise or
Oh, that one,
reputation.
yeah, that deeper level. This is the one I think that, you know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, it's like nothing in comparison with this one. Really and truly, no, really and truly. And this one we don't notice for quite a while until we've really seen the grosser level, you know? So, if you think about it, from the very second we're born, remember Buddha's saying this attachment is primordial. We've brought it from countless lives in the past. It's completely programmed in our mind. It's not because your mummy was mean to you that you get dissatisfied. You're born with it. You're programmed with it, okay? And then, of course, however your parents treat you is what exacerbates whatever's inside you, you know? That's obvious. But there's this craving already since you're born. This is quite shocking to hear, you know? So, there's mummy smiling at you. Little boy, you little child, you know? And mummy's smiling at you. And it causes, it's blissful. That's it, speaking about attachment, not speaking about the good side, not speaking about the virtues, the love of the mother. We're not discussing the virtuous part now. Please, we're just discussing this attachment that's in us, in all of us. So the person's got very strong attachment, and they're born like that, to be seen as a nice person, to be needed, to be approved of, to be praised, okay? Then that person, even when they're tiny, let's say mummy smiles at me, let's say I'm one of those, and mummy smiles at me, that feeds my need to be approved of, and I feel all happy because mummy's approved of me. And then I do this, and then I do the same, like I do that funny thing that I did yesterday, because mummy laughed at me and loved me, but today she's angry and I don't realise she's upset, and I do the same thing and she tells me off. Well, I'm going to freak out, I'm going to break down, won't I? I'll be a complete panic attack. Because suddenly the thing that I thought would get my praise doesn't get it. So I'm completely confused. Most of us are like this because our mummies are so neurotic. And they're not steady. If they're angry one day and patient the next, you get so confused about how to behave. Because you don't know how to get mummy to, you're just confused. No wonder we're all neurotic. Do you see my point? But if the point is this, and we don't think again this way in the West, you can have a person, let's say they're advanced practitioner from past life, who's given up bucket loads of attachment. There can be a child who isn't so dependent on what mummy thinks. This we can't accept in our culture because we assume this has all come from mummy, you know? But this would be perfectly possible. Like a child who doesn't have much neediness to be approved of. Then they won't suffer so much if mummy doesn't love them. They won't suffer so much if mummy's mean to them. Whereas having this attachment to be needed, to be approved, meaning this attachment to be seen as a good person, and the attachment to be praised, to hear nice words, and to be approved of. They're separate things, really. So the deepest craving is the one to be seen as a good person. And that means we have to, all the time, whatever we do, we don't have any confidence when we did the right thing. We need mummy to tell us you did the right thing. There was no see, with this attachment, there's no confidence in yourself. You're like a half a person. So opposite that kind of person who's got a mummy who's mean to them, that person will be very neurotic. There's no question. And they will always feel, what's that word we use in the West? When people, they say it's, what's that word? Rejection. Is that the word people use? They never feel anybody loves them. They never feel they're enough. They never feel people approve of them. They're always feeling people leave them, they reject them. Do you understand? That's because of this attachment. Intense need to be seen as a good person. Meaning, unless you're seen as a good person, you have to be nobody. That's how deep this attachment is. the dissatisfaction of being nobody, therefore you're always lonely. You never, no matter how many boyfriends you have, it's never enough. They can love you, praise you, stroke you every day, you're still dissatisfied. Because this attachment is like a bottomless pit. It all the time needs stroking. It needs, and really it means there's no sense of, there's no self-respect. You're like nothing. And then you're craving people to be seen you as a good person. Does it just can you hear this? Mm-hmm. This is a huge one. It's natural, so natural, we've all got it. And so, if we look at our lives, very common one is loneliness. Wouldn't you agree? People say they're lonely. I'm not trying to be cruel here, but this is attachment to being seen as a good person. Meaning, there you are in your house. You live in your home, and let's say you're a really good mathematician, you're really good at your job, you're a very lovely human being. But you have, but you live on your own. So you have all these thoughts, right? And, okay, you're driving down, a normal person, you're driving down the road, this one's right here as well. You're driving down the road, and you see something unusual on the road. Look at your mind. The first thing we do is we are already, in our mind, telling somebody about it. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Anything that happens at work, you can't wait to get home to tell the hubby. Anything that happens at home, you can't wait to tell it to your sister. We always have to tell people things that are going on for us. In our head, we're talking to people all the time. So if you don't have anybody to talk to, then you think, I'm lonely. Meaning you've got no one to share your thoughts with. Well, you've got to ask yourself, what is it about your thoughts that have no value until someone else hears them? This is just not logical. Can you hear this point? Yes. It is not logical. If your thoughts are so marvelous, if they're so horrible, why would you want to dump them on somebody else? But this is what attachment to being needed by other people is. And this doesn't mean that if you don't need other people, it doesn't mean if you don't need other people, you become like, you couldn't care less and you're mean and selfish. The microphones aren't working, have you noticed? Can we do something about it? No? Okay, never mind. This is because of recording, is it? Mostly, or because of amplification?
We don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? You're the boss. If you don't know, we're in trouble. Okay, never mind. Are we communicating here or not about this attachment?
Yes.
This one, and so that, we can see we have these never-ending conversations in our head. And most of the time, it's wishing other people to hear us, or it's sort of like negative to ourselves, or anxious, or worried, or upset, or not sure, or maybe this, or maybe that, and if only this, and he this, and said this, and said this, and why not this, and therefore this. Never ending, always anxious, always worried. And then the few times we do have what we would call positive thoughts about ourselves. This is very depressing. They're usually defensive, like, oh, I'm really better than they think I am. That's about the best we can do with positive for ourselves, I mean, we need other people to tell us we're nice. We need other people to tell us we're beautiful. We crave other people to tell us we're beautiful. We don't think we are unless someone else says it, We don't think we're good at something unless someone else tells us. Look at our definition of success in our culture. Other people seeing that you're good at it. You can imagine being the best musician on earth and no one knows. You'd be mad. You'd go crazy. We have to have other people see us. So this is so primordial in our minds. And that's what when you're living with somebody, like a partner, Okay, it seems to me, in the beginning of a relationship, right, when it's all delicious, and there's lovely sex and everything, you understand? I'm not being sarcastic, nothing wrong with sex, I used to love it. You understand my point? So the point is, that's the thing that usually defines our relationship. It's incredible connection with people. This is not appropriate, okay? I mean, it's just distressing for everybody. It's sounds. Okay, so we'll try now. Maybe a few ones. I've got a few more to go. That's okay. So when you're in love with somebody, so let's analyze. When you're in love with somebody, that's attachment mostly. They look totally beyond belief divine, don't they? That's the exact function of attachment. Attachment makes the object look way more delicious. And there's an advantage to that because it then triggers very nice feelings in your body. Now this is interesting because that's exactly the same as that little boy I mentioned who was attached to fishing. His mummy said the moment he met fishing when he was like 5, it's like he fell in love with fishing. Fishing looked divine to him. So the Buddhist view is, of course, he came into this life with a karmic imprint to kill. So he meets a scenario called fishing. It like triggers that memory, if you like, and then attachment is triggered immediately, and then that makes the fishing look absolutely gorgeous. This is the point about attachment. So, you know, a person who's attached to torturing people. I remember reading one about that guy called BTK years ago, called Bind, Torture, Kill. He would, you heard about him? Remember, in one of those states, he didn't get executed. No execution there. What state was it? About 30 years, he would kidnap people and then have this whole elaborate scenario. He would bind them, torture them, he'd have his sexual orgasms, and then he'd kill them, you know? That was his trick. Okay, that's from past lives, habits, you know? So the point is, he got pleasure from it. And that's what, so whatever your habit is, we get pleasure from it. That's why pedophiles get pleasure from seeing little children. That's why people who torture get pleasure when they torture. That's why we get pleasure when we have sex. That's why we get pleasure when we kill creatures, if that's your habit. That's why we get pleasure when we eat food, whatever our habit is, okay? So there's this fisherman, little boy, tiny boy, who has massive attachment. The fishing looked divine to him. That's its function. So whatever you're attached to is my main point here. So anyway, back to the husband, or whatever it is, whoever you're attached to. They look divine in the beginning, don't they? And then, of course, when you have physical contact, it's incredibly blissful, and everything's very radiant and wonderful, and then indeed you have also virtuous states of mind, which means you want that person to be happy. You do have compassion for that person, and that's the good stuff, that's fantastic. But look what happens when he starts not to notice you. Isn't that the nightmare? See, in other words, I just think this attachment to being seen as a nice person is really what drives sexual attachment. That's why it is so divine. One of the common things people who've been lonely and then they fall in love say is, finally I've met somebody who sees me, who hears me. That's the real bliss. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's the real bliss. And look at the torture when he stops looking at you. Look at the torture when he's looking at somebody else. It's like absolute insanity. Do you understand? Because he's not approving of you anymore. That's how craven we are to be seen as gorgeous by somebody else. We define as the only, otherwise we become like this lonely, demented person. So the opposite of this doesn't mean you don't care what people think. When you have gone beyond attachment, what it means is you are blissfully content in yourself. You are completely blissful. You're joyful. You're fulfilled. You're satisfied. You're content. And you also happen to be fearless and not angry and not jealous and not neurotic and not low self-esteem and all the other crap, because they all come from attachment. And you have infinite love and compassion. So you're an amazing human being. You're the human being you want to become. And it all comes down to attachment. Anger and jealousy and the others are branches of attachment. If there's no attachment, there's no way there's any anger. There's no way there's no jealousy. It's not possible. They couldn't have, they're not sustainable. They're all the branches of attachment, and that's the main voice of the ego grasping in the first place. It's this really intricate relationship between all of them and how they get down to the root neurosis of the very sense of an I in the first place. So attachment or reputation, as long as it's there, if the two of you are really attached to each other, it's sort of, that's what we call it in the West, what do they call it? Co-something. What's that called?
Codependence.
Thank you, codependence. That's attachment. But to each other. And you know, this is how, I'm not trying to be mean here, but can you ever remember the time when you were totally attached to a person and then you stopped being attached to them, but they continue to be attached to you? Anybody have experience like that?
Yes.
Isn't their attachment revolting?
Yeah.
Don't you wish they'd get out of your face and go away and leave you alone in peace? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when attachment's mutual, it's so delicious. But when it's only from the other side, it's like you want to kill the person. But if it's coming from you, it's like a nightmare, because it's not getting returned. So we can see how attachment's like revolting, you know? So then you go, well, how am I supposed to have pleasure if I don't have attachment? Well, the bonus is, when you haven't got attachment, the neurotic conceptual story, you will have 20 times better sex. I promise. So you won't lose anything. You'll have even better sex. You'll enjoy the food even more. Because of the nature of this physical body, you know, just the mechanics of this body. So the attachment we're talking about is not the sensory experience. It's the mental neurosis. So my friend Panos, who just saw girl shapes and he got excited, right, when he was 6. But when he got older, actually he said he saved up his first pocket money. He didn't go buy a toy train, he bought a prostitute. He used to love prostitutes. He's like 50 now, he's kind of calmed down, I think he's got a wife or something. Yeah, whatever. But the thing is,
What was I saying?
yeah, we all know with attachment. Because, you see, attachments, it inflates, it exaggerates, it distorts, it makes it more. And then we all know it'll calm down eventually. So that's where a relationship does last. If there's love and compassion and generosity and forgiveness and patience in it, that's the stuff that makes the relationship last. If it's mostly attachment, it'll last a couple of months if you're lucky, you know. And then it turns into 2 things. Either aversion, you wake up one morning, you can't believe who this ugly bloke is in the bed, or boredom. Attachment has nowhere else to go when it collapses. Aversion or boredom. Anyway, did I answer your question? As every second. You check if you're living with people, you're at work, we're always mentally, even in a restaurant, driving in a car, we're mentally noting all the time how we're affecting other people. Not out of compassion, out of worry what they're thinking about us. It's very hard to see this, it's very painful. There's a car on the road that, you know, especially in this country, when they toot their horn, you know they want to kill you. No one toots their horn here until they really want to murder you, you know. But even if a car gets a bit close to you, you get nervous, right? It's because they're not liking you. And they're a stranger. You don't know who they are. But you get so nervous, we get so nervous because a person's not approving of us. You're in a restaurant, you talk a bit loud, and someone looks ugly at you. You freak out because someone's not approving of you. We crave to be seen all the time as a nice person. Because we have no confidence to think we're nice already ourselves. And that's all that comes when you lessen this craving of attachment. You become your own person. You become content and fulfilled. Not self-centered, on the contrary. You become hugely content and you become loving and kind. So right now our attachment pollutes our love, pollutes our kindness, pollutes our compassion. Better than nothing, of course. So as you lessen attachment, you grow your contentment and you grow your love and compassion, just naturally. You see others more clearly. And so the more we have attachment to be approved of, the more fearful we are, the more neurotic and the more inauthentic. So terrified what people think. We'll always be trying to say the right thing, do the right thing, and be seen to do it. Be seen to say the right thing. Terrified to upset the apple cart. And we often call it, oh, I don't want to upset them. That's a lie. We don't want them to disapprove of us. Sort of be courageous and do something if it's the right thing, even if people don't approve of you. That's really takes courage. At the same time, to be patient and humble and do the right thing by somebody else is also perfect. So it's a minefield to see the difference. And we will never see it until we start looking deeply inside. Because there's so much going on inside. It is a minefield in there. And ego is so manipulative. These neuroses are so wicked, so cheating us. Time for tea.